Story so far. So certainly in England, you will know that over the second half of last year, certainly throughout the autumn term, we were running Action Short of Strike Action, about 50% of schools in England. That Action Short of Strike Action was designed to empower members to take better control of their well-being, of their working hours and their workload. In terms of the impact that had, hopefully some of you saw the video that was done just before Wayne reintroduced the session there. We got quotes from all around the country, examples of which I'll share with you shortly. If I can get it to move. There we go. So yeah, a few quotes there. People who'd never seen a proper PPA time dedicated in their school calendar. I love the one at the top. In the first time in 30 years, they'd ever seen a proper directed time calendar. And unless you know when you're meant to be working and when you're not meant to, how on earth can you maintain any sort of work-life balance? But actually, what it's all about is the box in purple there. Getting to a decent work-life balance, getting time to spend, the ability to spend time with family, not leaving your workplace every day, knowing that you've got a car boot full of marking or planning or all those other tasks that teachers are asked to undertake to do over the weekend and in the evenings. The other thing that's been happening over the last term, again in England, and I'm very happy, have we got colleagues from the devolved nations here? I think we've got from Northern Ireland. Any from Wales at all? Fantastic. And just say all of this stuff is relevant in all administrations. Northern Ireland, slightly complicated. We haven't had the government to lobby on any of this stuff until the last week, but believe me, we're very avidly out of the stocks and lobbying already there. And Scotland has it at least slightly better in terms of workload with a 35-hour working week, but there's still too much of this stuff going on, and we're still picking up in a school-by-school basis. And I'm going to come on to behaviour a bit later, which I know is a huge issue in Scotland at the moment. But we've got the DFE, and very definitely we, as in the NASUWT, got the DFE to establish a workload reduction task force. When all the unions were locked up with Gillian Keegan earlier in the summer, talking about pay, and Patrick still has nightmares about this now, all the other unions are focused just on pay. But as a sole voice at that table, the NASUWT was pushing on the issue of workload, because we know that year in, year out, for over 10 years, it's been the single biggest driver of poor mental health, poor physical health, and driving people out of the profession. And we pushed for this, and we secured it. Now, already, we've had two massive wins on this. Firstly, in a weird, misguided decision, many weird, misguided decisions from Michael Gove back in 2012, they took the list of 23 tasks that teachers shouldn't be undertaking in terms of admin and clerical roles out of the STPCD. As of this month, that will go back in again. We're having a negotiation at the moment as to whether it's statutory or non-statutory guidance, but that clear steer to schools that teachers shouldn't be asked to photocopy, shouldn't be asked to be analysing data, shouldn't be doing all that stuff that the invaluable support staff colleagues in schools should be doing, and to be honest, are often better qualified to do, will be back there, and that gives us a renewed tool in our arsenal. But also, and I'd say to me this was a slightly more surprising one, they got rid of the requirement to link pay to performance. And that's really significant, and will make, certainly for many of our members in underrepresented groups, including teachers with disabilities, who have told us again and again they thought that those processes were discriminatory and they were disadvantaged by them. There's no reason why schools have to pursue these anymore. The requirement to do them is going out of the window. So we have made progress, but we need to keep pushing on that. That task force continues. One of the things that they're looking at the moment, and we are ably represented on it by Darren Northcott, our National Official Education, is school-based practices. Some of that links to inspection and accountability, but it's all the stuff that employers, governors, heads invent. You know, it's the culture where we know that Ofsted, or indeed the HMI or Estin or whoever else, generates workload. But it's the heads responding to that generate the worst workload. It's the head going, wow, school down the road has got outstanding. So we do everything that they do, we should get outstanding as well. And that school over there, they got outstanding. We'll do everything they do, and the workload and the amount of marking and the presentation, everything, you just get swamped, absolutely buried in it. And the group's now looking at those sort of school-based practices to try and rein back on some of that. Because Ofsted's clear they don't want it. All the sort of deep marking, triple marking and all the rest of it. Ofsted aren't looking at that. It's ludicrous behaviour, so we've got to push back on it. So, starting from this term, we're trying to put all members in control of their working lives. And the first phase of that, which we're sort of coming to an end now, is to try and educate members. And I'm going to do a quick show of hands in the room. How many of you would say that you're familiar with your contract of employment? How many of you got a copy of your contract of employment even? Yeah, it's not very many. How many of you have got a copy of the directed time calendar for your school? Or know how many years and hours a year you're meant to be working? Okay, it's about 50-50 there. But how can you take control of your working life until you know how long your working life should last? So the first stage has been about empowering members to know, actually, how many hours should I be working a year? What does that look like? How do I secure my PPA time? What happens to that trapped time, for example, between the end of the school day and when you're expected to do a parents' evening, in which you haven't got time to go home and you're just trapped on site? Understanding all that stuff so you can take control. Because we can do this stuff nationally, and we will do it, with that workload reduction task force, and where we have an employer that is abusing our members, we'll come in, we'll work with our members there to take action. But actually, 270,000 members across the country will be most effective when you feel empowered to take that action yourselves, along with a strong bank of school reps. So, key at the moment, know your proper hours. Once we're confident the majority of our members do understand that and have got there's tools on our website, a directed time calculator, and all sorts of other resources and guidance as to how to interpret this work. That means that you then, once you know what job you should be doing and when you should be doing it, when the head teacher can direct you to do certain tasks and when it's actually for you to use your professional agency and autonomy, then you can work your proper hours. And the third one is take a break. It's still shocking the number of our members who don't get a lunch break, or if notionally they do get a lunch break. Every day they're actually asked, could you do some supervision or lunchtime detention, or actually just at the beginning of your lunch break, can we just have a 20-minute meeting about something that came up this morning, and another meeting gets tacked on the end and suddenly it's gone again. Really clear that most of our members are not getting a decent lunch break almost any day of the week. So I've already run through those principles there, and I'm conscious I want to give plenty of time for you to come back to me. And we have got the flexibility in the guidance we're giving out. We understand that some teachers in England aren't working to STPCD any longer. But actually the reality is that most people working for academies are still working on something very similar. There may be tweaks here and there, but we've got the advice on the site to help you sort of navigate those differences. So I've talked about the breaks there, but also about having a decent time away from work at the weekend, on bank holidays in the evenings. And there's that guidance there that sort of summarises some of the advice on the website and that we've communicated out to you elsewhere. And you will see, who in the room is a school rep? Yep, so a good chunk. Probably Wednesday of next week, you've got a bundle of 4 posters coming your way to sort of profile this campaign. We're going to every workplace with a rep or contact, including health and safety reps and the like. Those last 3 slides focused on the what you'd probably recognise as 8 of our industrial action instructions from last term. That leaves 2. These 2, which we don't think that we can pursue without an industrial action mandate. There's other 8, they're contractual, they're statutory. We can pursue those whether or not we've had that ballot. These 2 we do need a mandate for because they're not stuff in the contract. But if these are a problem in your workplace or in the workplaces of people in your districts, your local associations, contact us. Because we do want to tackle these, and there's an appetite in the workplace, we will ballot and we will escalate to industrial action in the workplace to deal with these issues. But we're clear these aren't statutory entitlements, we do need to fight for them. I've mentioned the resources on the website. You'll find stuff on our social media and elsewhere. And the support's out there, both from our lay activists, and you've got a number of national executive members in the room, local secretaries, but also from the staff side to make this a reality in workplaces. That's the key message, is we want all of our members to have control over their working time, working lives. We'll give them the information to do that, the support to do that, and fundamentally, the solidarity of being in a collective organisation to make that happen. Next steps, consultative ballot. So hopefully everybody, certainly all of our members in England who are directly employed by state schools would have had an email from me earlier this week. But not with my name at the bottom, but most of the emails you're bombarded with come from me in one way or another. Next Monday, we'll be opening a consultative ballot to see what the appetite is on the part of members to take action on pay, well-being, workload and working hours. That will stay open until the end of term, and I think it's reasonable to expect we'll see a report back on the results of that at annual conference over the Easter weekend. Voting will be online. This isn't a statutory ballot, so we cannot take industrial action off the back of the results of this. This is to give us an indication as to whether we move into that full statutory process, which has to be paper and postal based. I think there's also, it's likely for any colleagues in Wales that we're likely to be moving towards balloting there sometime over the course of the next couple of months. We're waiting to see which way the Welsh Government jumps, both in terms of its strategic review and in terms of a change of leadership in Wales. Obviously, Mark Drakeford's retired, and Vaughan Gething and Jeremy Miles, current Education Minister, are vying for the top spot. So we'll see what direction that takes us in. I mentioned behaviour, absolutely crucial issue, particularly post-pandemic in all jurisdictions in the UK, but we know that we've seen particular issues in Scotland. And as a result, again, of NASUWT pressure, we've been involved in the work, the summits that behaviour and relationship summits, 3 of them that took place at the end of last year, where we're starting to shape some of the policy agenda on this, pushing back, actually, to be honest, sometimes against some of the restorative behaviour responses, which work, let me be clear, sometimes. For some kids, they are absolutely the right response, but they're sort of a default go-to now when actually other responses are needed quite often. And we're working with specialists like Tom Bennett around that. And one of the things that I think we've always been proud of as a union is that we're prepared to take industrial action if necessary and really push back against employers if we feel that our members are at risk. And actually not just our members, but the other kids in the classroom that they teach. If there's behaviour problems that need to be addressed, they can't just be brushed under the carpet. It's not in the interest of the pupil expressing that poor behaviour. It's not in the interest of our members. It's certainly not in the interest of the other kids in the class. So we'll continue to support members when they want to take action in those situations. Lots of work ongoing nationally around this, developing our sort of package of support. You know, just as a very quick example, the one thing that our early career teachers, newly qualified teachers, the terminology varies around the UK now, come to us saying that they're confident in their pedagogy, they know their subject, they're confident in their ability to convey that to children and young people. But the nightmare of managing the behaviour of 30 young people in the classroom, they're woefully underprepared for. We'll continue to try and make up some of that gap in terms of our early career teacher seminars, in terms of the webinars we line and the guidance that we provide. And I'd say it doesn't necessarily get easier as you move on in the profession either. There's constant challenges and we need to be there, both responding ourselves but also pushing governments to do the same. But we can't do this. You know, the union is very lucky, I have to say, in the staff colleagues that we have, who do an awful lot of work in terms of advocating on behalf of our members, in terms of organising and casework. And I really should mention casework. It's something that we are very proud of, and we've been having some discussions recently about what makes us special, and it comes back again and again. The quality of our casework blows that of the NEUs out of the water every time, and we need to be singing our successes more around that. But fundamentally, we're a collective organisation. We are a union of teachers, that's you. And actually, without you and without your involvement, be it at events like this, and I recognise I'm preaching to the converted, you are already some form of activist in the union because you're here. You've given up your Saturday, you've come, you know, in some cases, hundreds of miles to be a part of this event. But you know, the stronger we will be, ever more stronger, the more members are involved, and move from that sort of being service providers and with the union there as an insurance policy to actually taking a leading role in shaping the future of the profession. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll hand over, and very happy to take any questions on anything I've talked about, anything I haven't talked about that you think I've missed, or indeed anything else campaigns or communications related.
Okay, thank you for that, Chris. We have got 2 questions online. I'll just take one from the room first. Yep, wait for this microphone, and then I'll do these 2 and see what time we've got left.
I think teaching is a very special profession, and it's full of very committed people, and that obviously includes us. I would say one of the big barriers to these proposals, or these things that we're doing, are the teachers that self-sacrifice, the ones who will work 26 hours a day, 12 days a week. How do we get the message through to them to make sure that, I think unless we get everyone on board with this, it's something that's not going to happen. How do we get them on board, and how do we show them that this is the way forward?
Yeah, I think fundamentally to me that's about working smarter, not longer. You know, getting rid of those 23 admin and clerical tasks that use up the teacher's day, but actually aren't teaching tasks. They don't contribute in any way to teaching and learning. Actually frees up that time to focus on teaching and learning and developing the children that all of our members came into the profession to serve. And I think the other half of it is actually a burnt out teacher suffering from poor mental health and stuff. That doesn't benefit anybody either. And the recent National Teachers Poll we undertook had some of our members working 80 plus hours a week. When you're at that sort of level, you're not able to provide the education that you want to as a teacher. That's not why you came into the profession. And I think to my mind, those are the 2 things. It's working and actually being able to focus and use your professional agency in terms of teaching and learning and leading teaching and learning. And it's about actually having your own work-life balance and positive mental health to be able to deliver the education in the way that you came into the profession wanting to.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to add something to that as well. Obviously, your comment was like sometimes ed teachers are their own worst enemy. You know, regarding they'll just work and work and work, but it's just re-educating them that there is a, you know, they have got family, they have got a life away from teaching, and it's just re-educating them in that respect. I'll just take these 2 questions from our online people. Very quick one. Ruth has said, is this for colleges as well, the consultative ballot?
So no, well, obviously we have 2 types of colleges. Both we have members in FE and then sixth form colleges. We are in dialogue at the moment with Sixth Form College Association about how we tackle workload there. Absolutely, potential for industrial action remains on the table there. There is still as significant problems in the sixth form sector as it is in schools, but this particular ballot is around state-funded schools in England.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Rebecca. Part-time teachers seem to fall into the cracks here, especially with disabilities. How can correct workload, directed time, etc., be accounted for? Yep,
absolutely agree. And I think the mockery made of part-time teachers is they have part-time contracts with part-time pay, but effectively work full-time. They're doing 5 hours a week, but just being paid for 2, being paid for 3. And we need to make sure that we absolutely crack down on that, because we do know that it's our members from underrepresented groups who end up in there, who for care, because they have caring responsibilities or health concerns, or for whatever other reason, aren't able to make use of flexible working, which we know is a myth in many schools, and therefore are forced in the supply sector. Now, there are good supply employers, there are bad ones, but there are a lot of bad ones out there. Agencies who take advantage of people who don't have another route into work, are using umbrella companies to defraud HMRC as well. And we're going after those in a separate campaign. But we've very much got that issue in our crossfires, as it were, and in the coming, I'm looking over to the back corner of the room, to our very able website manager and see how far I can push on this. In the coming couple of weeks, you will see a part-time version of the pay calculator, of the director time calculator online. Yes. Wonderful. So yes, because it isn't as simple as just putting in slightly different figures for a full-time one. We can't just say, you know, put what hours you should be working. There are different calculations to be made. So there will be, for the first time, a specific version of the director time calculator for our part-time members to make sure that they're able to speak with confidence or go with confidence to their managers, their employers on these workload issues.
Thank you. We've got one more question here. Anyway, put your hand up, I can have a look round. Try and keep your questions nice and short so we can try and get more in. Thank you.
Can I just issue a tiny plea that you perhaps limit the number of emails out to one a week? Because sometimes less is more, and I don't have the time to read email after email. And sometimes I miss something really vital. So could you possibly please just limit it to once a week? Thank you.
I wish I could say yes to that. I'm often in the hands of other colleagues as to what they're trying to communicate out, and I try and manage the throttle a bit, particularly with our surveys, which obviously require a more active response. Between these four walls, I leave to a bit of a secret at the moment. As we approach the annual conference, a lot of our staff colleagues are racing through the motions document from last year, thinking, oh, we've still got to tick these things off before we get to annual conference. So sort of surveys and other stuff coming in all directions. What I would say is we're moving towards a new membership system at the moment. And the key to this, to me, isn't about the total number of emails that goes out. It's the number any given member gets. The more that we can differentiate our members and understand their engagement with the union, the more we can target that, so we make sure that every email is going to the person that's right. It's almost not so much about volume. It's you knowing it's worth your time reading that and responding in whichever way you're asking to, lobbying your MP, completing a survey, because it will make a difference potentially to your working life. As long as we keep doing that, actually we could send 2 a week, 3 a week, as long as it's really relevant. We need to tell you what we've done as a result of that, and we need to get better at that. But really, it's about understanding our membership and making sure that we're really forensically targeting stuff. I'm working on the technological side of that with colleagues. What we need from you, though, is to keep your membership details up to date. So if you've recently moved into supply from a permanent position, or if you've... who here has moved into a leadership role in, say, the last couple of years? Yep. Have you told us? Yes. Wonderful. Okay. It's not typical, I have to say, because we know that our leadership membership is really understated on the membership system. And unless those people have told us they've moved in to become an assistant head or deputy or whatever the role is, how can we invite them to our leadership seminar? Or if somebody hasn't told us, oh yeah, I've stopped working at this primary school, I'm now doing supply locally, we can't invite them to the events that are welcome to us. Meanwhile, we're sending them stuff about being a primary teacher where they're not doing that anymore. So, it's a two-way deal, as it were. We'll get the technology in place to be better targeted and feedback, but we need your help in keeping member details up to date so we can get that targeting accurate.
I think with the just because it's the particular year we've got this year, there may be a few coming out with an election looming. One in the middle.
Yeah, Dan Perryman from Northampton. What I'd like to ask is, how are we coping with trusts and schools that don't recognise unions and hostile schools and ones that are not paying into facility and so forth? Is there a campaign to try to get them on board to recognise unions and so forth? What are we doing? Because it's getting, I think, a bigger problem. Yeah.
So in terms of recognition, this is generally a feature only of the independent sector. I'm not aware we've got any situation with state-funded schools that don't recognise unions. But facilities is an issue. Often it is about our national negotiating officials and National Executive Committee trying to negotiate with those. But they're, sadly, when we saw the increased fragmentation of the education sector post-2010, we're like any other sector now. There are rogue employers out there. That said, there were pretty bad local government employers back in the day as well, so we shouldn't kid ourselves otherwise on that. But we are continuing to push on that. But I'd say that, again, this is a two-way thing. We need to sort out our end of the bargain. And this is the work. Was anybody at conference last year here? Yeah, so there's a few people. You remember the 2B motion that came from National Executive, which focused on organising for the future. That work is well underway, and part of that is thinking about how we operate as an organisation, which historically was entirely geographical. Our national executive districts, our local associations, the existence of negotiating secretaries to negotiate with the local authority over paying conditions. Well, some of those negotiating secretaries now are in local authorities that no longer have any maintained schools. They're all academised. But we haven't really caught up in, like, what does that mean for the NSUWT and how we operate? So in some of those places, I'm not sure we'd have the people to take on the facilities time to act in a particular way to deal with a large mat if it was offered. So we need to keep pushing it, but we need to make sure that we're operating in a way and organising in a way that we can take advantage of every opportunity when it comes our way.